Hey guys, this is Neil Gewirtz with BlueFirePoker.com, and I'm back here with my student. Go ahead and say hello again.
Hi, this is Luca.
Okay, and we're doing part two of the same session review at 15 no limit on full tilt. If you guys want to go ahead and go back and watch the first video to check out whatever grades we've accumulated or see whatever we talked about at this point, we're just this is approximately 5 minutes later. We're just going to completely pick up and keep going where we left off. So I'll just hit play here, and well, since we've just been talking for an hour, but not too much to talk about. Let's hope a hand comes up.
Later on, I was kind of trying to induce action, maybe made some bad calls. So yeah.
Okay, so sounds like the video might get interesting here. Let's man, these buttons like free betting for sure. So let's go ahead and yeah, we folded every time. It's okay, for the most part, you want to be taking a lot of tight responses to the crazy free betting in position, but you can't be a total, I don't know, passive player and completely fold every single time. So even though, yeah, there'll be a lot of folding to free bets, it's often the right play. Maybe there was a time, I think I mentioned that ace-jack suited might have been about the right time for it to
four bet. Yeah.
to four bet. Although, again, as we analyzed that hand before, it's pretty likely he had ace king, so it would have went wrong. But again, looking for that ace blocker, or looking for a good spot to possibly four bet bluff, or for sure four bet and stack off a bit lighter than normal if the guy is just free betting like crazy. And it looks like we do pull the trigger on this squeeze of king queen suited here. We didn't squeeze a king queen suit or a king queen offsuit in a similar spot before. Let's go ahead and get your thought process here while you free bet here.
Well, I've been calling a lot and not free betting any, so I just wanted to use this spot to free bet and kind of like represent a really strong hand because, like I said, I didn't free bet before on this table, so it seemed like a good thing to do.
Okay, I mean, one thing I'll say is, yeah, go ahead.
Position is not the best, but still, I think I'm gonna get folds here most of the time. So
sure, we're out of position. I mean, one thing about king queen suited is, it's tough to call this a bluff or whatever. You're right. We're gonna get a lot of folds again. Like I said similarly before, it's okay when you're out of position to make a play which isn't clearly for value or a bluff. But king queen suited plays very well post flop. It's not a hand which I'd really be ecstatic about three bet folding without having any other plan for it. So the one thing I'll point out is, we have a very loose player over here with Jocelyn Chess. I can't quite read it. Dress maybe. I'm okay with this free bet if intention is kind of getting all in with him, which I'm assuming if he jams all in, we're not folding?
I think I folded, yeah.
Ooh, is that what happens?
So
well, let's go ahead and hit play, and we'll see how this turns out.
Obviously the tight player folds here and the fish calls.
Oh, he calls. Okay, so yeah, think about it, with this hand, it might be slightly ahead of his range, and for sure, when we factor in fold equity or whatever, it's in good enough shape, and I don't really expect him to be folding all that often. So one thing to point out is, yeah, even though the initial raiser is folding a lot, it's not like we're getting the fish to fold a ton. So the question is, do we want to free bet this for value against the fish and kind of get all in with him? And it's reasonable enough. King queen suited, it's not going to be that far ahead of his range, but it's probably a slight favorite, and maybe there's some other way to get a bunch of money out of his hand, like for example him calling and folding a flop, which isn't the end of the world. So again, this is a spot where it's certainly, just kind of pot the flop, and I expect to be folding a lot of hands. To be honest, on occasion they call with worse. Is the other thing about this. So
yeah, I kind of did the more stupid approach. I see bet the flop and fold the turn, I think.
Yeah, we just can't really. Again, I would make it a point where I don't want to put. I don't like this bet sizing just because, I want it just blatantly clear. But we're getting all in here. I don't really want a decision. I don't want to possibly outthink myself. And again, fold a bunch of equity. Maximize. Probably just jamming all in probably does maximize fold equity on the flop. Whereas he can't really float. So yeah, we don't want to put in a whole bunch of money on these early streets and fold. Kind of as a standard. Particularly, getting such a good price. All things along those lines.
Yeah, I don't know why I folded there, really. I mean,
I mean, at this point, it's close. You know, we're getting 5-1. I'm just calling it off. Remember, we don't have any fold equity at all, so you know it becomes a bit tougher.
Yeah.
You know, betting it all off, you always have the option of them folding. You know, it becomes very clear. You know, we're risking $7 to win 20. He's going to fold a lot. We're going to win 20% of the time. All of a sudden, when we're calling and we're only winning 20% of the time, it becomes less clear. So you know, find a way to get that last bet in. And again, if you're flop bet sizing, you know, realize the stack size is right there and just stick it all in. You know, even though it's a
Yeah.
slight overbet, it's not a big overbet. Or you know, or bet 11. You know, where it's at the point, even if you just want to jam the pot button. Where I mean, sure, you know, he could call $4 left, but I'm sure you're not even considering folding, you know, 4 into 40, even with king high. It's not
Yeah.
even a question there. Whereas 750 into 33, it's actually, you know, it's not such a bad fold at that point, but we really shouldn't have gotten to that point.
Yeah. Well, I think I should just stick it in on the flop.
Yeah,
It will be the best play, I think.
for sure. Definitely prefer that. Well, I mean, oh, yeah, let's go back just a little bit. We see these couple hands. We didn't discuss the second king queen over here, over on table 2.
Yeah. Again, I think a three bet.
This is probably a spot where we likely can 3-bet for value. He seems like a very loose player. There's a reasonable chance, but he'll call off worse. It's very early on, you know, I can't say for sure. But a looser player, again, out of position against one player, you know, like I said in the hand on the left, we want to find some reason to be calling it a value 3-bet and not kind of wasting it. And just a looser player, we call it a value 3-bet. So it's reasonable enough. This board, what do you think?
Yeah, it's very coordinated board, so
Yeah.
he only calls me here with a with better hand. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think it's, you know, he does fold, so, you know, it's hard to say exactly what his range is. I
yeah.
think I
Well,
prefer check folding here. I can't imagine too many hands are folded. I guess ace-queen folds. Ace-jack, I guess, isn't folding. It's just 2 overs and inside straight draw. But if he is a bit of a looser caller, which, again, you know, kind of, as far as a consistent thought process with his hand goes, if we 3-bet king-queen pre-flop, it doesn't have, you know, it's a bit unclear if it's for value or a bluff, but, you know, I'd consider it a bit more for value. And, you know, if he's calling with worse, all of a sudden he kind of crushes his board if he's calling with worse hands than king-queen. So it seems like probably if we were thinking he's going to call with worse than king-queen, we should probably just check fold. If he's only calling with better, we should probably still check fold, but at least we're folding out, like, you know, most, I guess ace-queen, ace king if he was in
yeah,
mid, but yeah, it's a pretty murky spot right here. I wouldn't think all that much misses other than, again, maybe ace queen. So he does fold. Yeah, obviously there's something going on here. Maybe he just had ace queen, but it's probably not exactly the most plus CVC bet in the world.
yeah. That's a good point.
And again, but it looks like, you know, we're just playing, and the other thing I wanted to go back for, over on table 3, we folded 9-10 suited on the button. Over on table 2, we're about to fold a queen-10 offsuit on the button. We're playing just too passively on the button. Kind of good things in general happen when you know, again, they allow, sometimes they'll just check fold to you. You could float, you could value bet pretty easily. You want to be playing hands in position. The 9-10 suited, generally speaking, I would have considered strong enough to call with. The queen-10 offsuit, I'd much prefer squeezing. Or, you know, just free betting. I guess not squeeze if someone else didn't call. But, you know, I guess we see how much trouble our opponents are putting us in when they are free betting us in position. You know, we've had a couple interesting spots. We folded a lot.
Yeah.
You just do the same thing back to them. I generally say is the more proper, I guess I want to say, or the easier adjustment. Instead of, you know, going nuts and 4-betting them, just kind of steal their blinds just as often. You know, free bet them in position just as much. And you're going to see similar profit or whatever.
I agree. I don't quite remember what I did here.
You know, obviously if he has more money, if a fish has more money, it's a very easy call. Here it's a bit of a pot odds type thing. I think it's a call, but it's close. If he folds, I'm not gonna call it terrible. If a fish, you know, again, if a fish has like $50, all of a sudden flopping a 7 is gonna be huge. Given that he only has 20, it's pretty marginal.
Yeah, I agree. And the original free bet player, the player who originally free betted is pretty tight. So I think even if I flop a set with 7, I could be behind.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, that's true, but I'm not exactly going to be all that concerned over setting. You know, obviously, well, this is a perfect flop. Say the flop did come King Jack 7, I'm still going broke. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so, a set is a huge hand.
Yeah.
You're not going to get set over set all that much, enough to really consider. The fact that he has a strong range is a good thing, generally speaking.
True. It's interesting how many mistakes you spot while you're watching yourself play again. It's,
Oh, sure. Yeah, you're not alone. Everyone, it's much easier after the fact and with the pause button for sure. Everything's pretty standard there. I'm okay taking the one set with the ace-jack. It is a board and a spot where I think you should kind of be planning on barreling a lot. This is annoying. We'll pause this for queen nine and see how this goes.
yeah.
With ace-jack hand, see betting once and done. As far as doing that too much again, it'll get a little bit spewy. Expect opponent blind versus blind to float a lot on a board like that. But given how the turn is a six of spades, it's pretty likely that he's floating with some sort of a straight draw, some sort of a flush draw.
That's
Really bad
correct.
card for us. So yeah, okay to just check and give up there. We're going to be barreling, generally speaking, a few more higher cards. I guess we just play it out, see what you do with the queen nine here. I mean, I guess you have to call it, given that he's such a bad player.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate a fold, but yeah, the only reason, yeah, that's the reason why I think it's close call, because I think he has, I was thinking 8-9 much more than 6-9 in his range. He could possibly raise him with the worst two pair, but to point out in that spot, he's just not bluffing there. It's as simple as that. And queen nine isn't really in great shape against a hand which isn't a bluff, so it's a lot closer than it looks, but against the 67-27, I'm not going to level myself too much and really fold given such a good price, but yeah, we're not good there. By no means all the time.
Yeah, and also Jack 10 can be in his range as
Oh,
well.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yep. Yeah, he can certainly have it straight. A couple bigger two pair. Actually, I'm mostly concerned about Jack 10, but yeah,
Yes.
because of it.
That was
Yeah, I was gonna say because of 8-9, and he had 9-6. Not, I wasn't really considering that, but a bit more 8-9. There is a worse value hand which can raise, and we're getting a good price. If you could possibly doing it for value of worse, it's a pretty decent call. And there over on table three, we fold like a 5-7 suited on the button. I think that's another spot to raise very tight big blinds and a fish in the small blinds, even though he's not folding a ton. He's 52-12, and yeah, we'll leave it out, play him.
okay. Yeah, I'll keep that in notes. This 8-9 too. I guess it's standard raise from the button.
Yeah, it's a bit closer. Just, I mean, I do consider the big blind is a bit more who I'm targeting and looking at as the tighter player. On the table on the left, the tight player was the big blind is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
On the right, it's the loose player who's the big blind. So I think our steal is going to work more often on the table on the left. So a bit clearer of a raise, but yeah, both would be fine.
Yeah, I think that 8-9. I should have. I don't know. I should have called maybe just because there was just so much money in there, so many limpers. I think it's profitable if I hit it.
I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. Was it a raise and two call, or how did it go? Again, I don't.
It was a raise and two calls, I believe.
It was a raise
And,
and two call. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I'm probably still folding, but you're right. If it's a raise and two calls, it doesn't become all that bad to really play much on the button. Anything which can reasonably hit a flop can't be a big mistake.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, no big deal. Again, on table four, I'd bet a bit bigger on this flop, and I'm okay with a bit more exploitable bet sizing. I'm just kind of setting up, really wanting to jam most turns and kind of rush the money in as quick as possible on a connecting board.
Okay. Yeah, especially against a player who's as loose as he is.
Sure. I mean, yeah, the couple good things about it is, he's more likely to check call that flop on an early street with whatever, very marginal draw he might have, like just an inside straight draw where, he's not a big difference between, a $4 bet and a 3 1/4 bet. He's probably going to call either way. And
Yeah.
also, it allows us to jam a turn easier.
Yeah.
And just, as far as the difference, yeah, actually, and you did bet bigger on table one with a set of queens, I noticed.
Yeah, I think that
So,
was a mistake.
actually, yeah, I'm gonna, well, I don't need, yeah, I'll pause it, why not? Yeah, I
Maybe.
think that's a mistake, because, what I'm thinking there as far as, and I guess I mean, if I'm gonna pause it, might as well have something showing. So, yeah, this is a very dry connecting board. Our hand is extremely vulnerable. It's the same stack to pot ratio. I think this is 455. The other pot is about $4. Here we have an extremely vulnerable hand, lots of turn cards we don't want to see. We bet smaller, whereas here, I think it'll be just the exact same situation. We have a
Uh,
near invulnerable hand. Obviously, Jack 10 is a straight draw. There's a couple inside straight draws. But, first off, we're very much more, we always have the best hands. We have the nuts on table 1, but we're nowhere near the nuts on table 4. So we do want to make sure to, keep our it's much more important that we keep our market here. And, yeah, just board texture-wise. A lot more reasons. We're okay going 3 streets on table 1. We don't need to rush the money in at all.
yeah.
Whereas on table 4, we want the money in flop and turn. Here, you can bet like a $1.50. There's just not
Yeah.
much risk. And, you could still bet $4 on the turn and bet for the last 15 on the river, and we have a pot size bet.
Yeah. I could also float the flop with queens. It might.
It's given the stat to pot ratio, you're right. The option is there, but I'd rather min
That's
bet or
fine.
something.
Yeah.
Just try to think outside, try to induce, try to do something silly. A player bet loose, it's not going to fold to a min bet. So, if you're trying to pot control the flop or whatever, you're trying to not bet, instead of checking, just bet the minimum. Maybe you'll check raise. So, you can do kind of silly things. The point being, yes, certainly you're right. The smaller side is definitely fine. Checking somewhat of an option, but I'd rather bet like 50 cents or a dollar if I was looking to bet something real small.
Yeah. Kind of rushed myself in there, so.
Sure. And yeah, also the other thing to point out is, clearly I haven't made a mention of, exploitability and giving up your hand strength for bet sizing. When you're playing against good opponents, that's a bit more what you want to be concerned about than anything else. But against these bad opponents, you're just thinking about how to get the most money. So none of that really matters as far as, balancing your bet sizings or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of interesting. Whenever I hit something, they all fold. When I try to bluff, I don't get it.
Sure. We've all had both sessions for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
But,
it's pretty standard.
yeah, it's annoying. But yeah, it's important not to get frustrated with it. You didn't, which is a good thing. And
Yeah,
yeah, you're just, for the most part, players, they're just not making a ton of plays. At least, you can kind of see that we're making a lot of plays in the normal spots. But yeah, we're not making too much. It's good to just fold for the most part.
yeah,
Here at the, well, obviously we have to fold. I think the 7-3, if we got checked around, they would have stabbed the turn. I think we had a two-way straight draw. We certainly had at least an inside straight draw. No big deal. Obviously, it didn't get checked. I'm not going to bluff raise or anything. But, if the small blind checks, if the person it was checked to, this person in position over here, once he checks that flop, he's saying he doesn't have much of a hand, probably not even a pair, because you're going to bet a drawy board if you hit the flop, and if the small blind checks twice, well, he's saying twice he didn't have a hand. So,
yeah,
again, a small spot, you don't really want to be auto-folding. Obviously, the guy bet, I'm not going to make a play. But we certainly had an inside straight draw. I think a 5 or an 8 made a straight. I'm not going to go back, no big deal. Well, we had at least one way to make a straight, so a bit of equity as well.
yeah. I was planning to do a min bet on the turn if the small blinds didn't bet so big. He overbetted, so
Sure. Yeah,
only
sure. Even if he min bet, I would still be folding. I wouldn't make a play at it. But yeah, if it was checked, though, I definitely think it's a spot. So just fire at a dollar or win $1.50. Again, it'll just work a lot given the information that we have. A small blind who checked twice. The other player who already checked once, and it is probably a spot where I would fire a lot of river bets if a lot of draws miss, because we have absolutely no showdown value with 7 high, and it's pretty likely that these weaker players will call the turn with a draw, which just simply has to be better than ours. So it's a good spot to make another kind of small river bluff of like a dollar on the turn, maybe 2 on the river.
I agree. So where do you play now?
So I deposited on Merge a few days ago, and trying to grind that out. Carbon Poker Merge Network. Well,
It's kind of
maybe.
difficult.
Oh, yeah. Everything. Yeah, it's becoming a bit annoying here, but
Yeah, obviously, still Full Tilt and PokerStars have like the best offers, and it's hard to switch from that to something
For
like.
for sure. I don't want to say too many bad things about Merge. You know, they've been good enough, but yeah, the software is noticeably a bit worse.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, so it looks like we're considering the play over on table one. Certainly fine with it. Free betting, flat calling certainly wouldn't be all that bad. It's on the loser side. I don't really mind at all being a bit in a free better fold mentality with ace-8 suited. Certainly a good candidate to bluff. And, you know, as I always say, you don't need to make every play at all. I think we've made a couple too few. I think I would have actually liked to see you pull the trigger there if ace-8 suited, but certainly don't do it 100% of the time.
Okay, for the next time, I'll
Sure.
try to do so. This one time, obviously, players, from my point of view, a really solid player from what I've seen. So I wasn't too excited against him, playing against him. So
Okay, so what is your plan with the check raise here, Ben?
well, he's calling me here with mostly with better hands. So I was just trying to induce that I have a set or something, because I think I just called his race, and it would make sense that I have something like set of fours or maybe set of sevens, and just try to get it in, because he seems to be a thinking player, so that play would make sense. I mean, from my behalf.
Okay, I think this is another spot where I'm not sure if the other spot was in part one or part two, where yeah, you know, you have a pair of tens. So like if you're trying to represent a set of fours or set of sevens, why exactly? I guess I want to say, why are you trying to represent such a strong hands when you have everything that's going to fold beat anyway?
Mm,
Yeah, I wouldn't quite. I mean, are you trying to fold out jacks, or are you trying to get him to fold an overpair? Are you gonna like three barrel bluff here or something?
I'm trying to get him to fold like something like ace king or something like that, or maybe even better 10, something like queen 10, king 10, ace 10.
So I mean, again, you know, you're almost you're using top pair as a bluff. Then you know, you don't need to get too caught up in all spots of where you're doing something for value as a bluff. And again, like I said, if you don't think you can get this to showdown anyway, it's okay just doing this. But generally speaking, with a top pair type hand, you're just not folding out all that much better. There isn't a ton of value in getting ace king to fold. I mean, but one thing I'd say about an ace high. Ace high is pretty likely to check on this flop anyway. You know, particularly ace king, something with two overcards. You know, he's not representing the most hand. It's pretty reasonable to check behind with an ace high. He might not be betting it. Again, you're mostly folding out worse and getting called by better. It really doesn't accomplish all that much. We don't. There's just no reason to represent a set of sevens or a set of fours when we have a jack 10. Now, if we have like 5-6 or something, we might want to represent a big hand because a lot of better hands will fold. But this is a hand we could very much consider using as a hand we want to get to showdown by starting to check call and possibly inducing more bluffs. Whereas check raising, we're much more using a top pair as a bluff, and really just like generally game theory type speaking, you want to be using your weakest hands as a bluff, and this is just nowhere near one of our weakest hands.
Okay. Uh, I don't know. It seemed reasonable to me here. Just re-raise the flop.
I mean, if you want to check raise, if you're playing, and I guess the next question would then be, what if he 3-bet? So we'll
If
actually
he
pause again.
if he free bet, I would probably be folding most of the time, because he would free bet here only with monster hand. So I don't think my Jack 10 is in good shape. If
Okay, so then the
that's
question comes, why are you using Jack 10 to make the check raise? He has no idea what hand we have. Now,
yeah.
why don't we use Ace 6 offsuit? We're folding to a 3-bet anyway.
Yeah.
It's but the point being, when you have a hand which you could possibly use as a call, as a hand which you could get to showdown, as a hand which is strong enough to see another street to continue with, very oftentimes, and you need to ask yourself that question: is this hand strong enough? And generally speaking, yes. A top pair marginal kicker is a hand strong enough to call with, and likely to get to showdown. We're not risking all that much giving free cards. Obviously, there's three of them. There's an ace, king, or queen. We're giving up a bit of value there. But for the most part, if our intention is just check raising, fold into a free bet, there's absolutely no value in this. He's not calling with anything worse. This just doesn't work as a bluff. He's not folding anything better. Why did we choose this hand? Why did we choose this hand, which we can call with? We can call with jack. You can't. You're allowed to call this flop with ace-6 offsuit. But I wouldn't
Yeah.
recommend it. This is a hand which I would recommend calling with. It's perfectly fine with a top pair. So, if you're going to bluff, you're better off using some sort of, small equity hand, something like Queen Jack, two overcards, something which, now all of a sudden, sure, he can call with, we have backdoor potentials, we have overcards, all that, and, we're doing a much better job of bluffing, and we're clearly not value betting. So again, just,
Okay.
yeah, you want to
Yeah.
be, it seems like, yeah, you're raising in a lot of spots just because you have a pretty good hand, and, you need to, poker's not very clear-cut in ABC, on occasion, but it's okay. It can get a bit confusing. But, really, for the most part, you want to have a bit more of a clearer thought process as far as along the lines of, is this hand strong enough to call with? It's got to be, one of the first things that goes through your mind. Similar things with the king-queen on table 2. Well, the first question I usually ask myself is, can I raise this hand for value? So, and the point being, similar with the king-queen on table 2, I won't pause it again, and the jack-10 offsuit, neither were hands I would really consider I could have free bet for value against both opponents in both situations. Sometimes you could raise a top pair for value, sometimes you could raise king-queen for value. We went over that. We actually, I think we pulled the trigger once, we didn't the other time. But in neither of these spots would I really consider it. The next question is, can you bluff? And then finally, can you call? And, I think both of those hands really fell a bit more clearly into the call category. If that all, I
Okay.
know that may have been a bit confusing, but I hope that all made sense. Maybe I'll, I know,
Yeah, it makes sense.
okay, great, yeah.
It makes sense. I just checked that down. I didn't see no point in betting that.
That's fine. Yeah, there's no money out there. Again, we very much have a hand we could bluff with. I will
Yeah,
say that
true.
much, but it's fine, completely giving up for sure. It looks like you're smaller under the gun there. It looks like I'm guessing there wasn't much of a thought process there. It looked like you just kind of fumbled with the slider.
Yeah, I kind of fumbled with the
Yeah,
slider. Yeah,
and
I
missed
was
it slightly.
trying. I was thinking of betting a bit bigger because I was under the gun. So, but I changed my mind. I don't know why.
Okay, that's fine. Here this is a pretty interesting spot, a bit of a tough spot. But one thing I'll certainly say about this spot is that this player over here is never bluffing. So we'll pause it here. Why did you call here? What's your thought process?
Huh. That's an interesting question. Why did I call? I think I feel that Ace Queen suited is strong enough to see it has a strong showdown value. So I think I'm good in most cases, especially if I spike an ace or maybe a flush draw or something like that.
So all right, there's a few interesting things about this hand. First off, the first thing I said, this player's never bluffing. Why am I saying that? Are you following with me there?
Yeah, I'm following you. I'm following you.
Oh, well, yeah, I just want, before I say why, what's the reason? Why do I think he's never bluffing? Why is he never bluffing?
Mm,
I didn't explain myself, by the way. That's why, I'm wondering if you came up with the same conclusion I did.
well, actually,
Or maybe you disagree. Maybe you think he is bluffing sometimes. Go ahead and explain that as well.
I mean, his true bet percentage is pretty high, so yeah, he could be bluffing some of the time.
All
Trying.
right, here's my view of the hand and why I don't think he's ever bluffing, and I'll just right there. The guy with $13. There's a guy with $13 in the pot. It's very likely that he just sticks the last 13 in, and then what's he gonna do? He's not gonna fold a 7-6 suited. This is a spot where the money's his money is very likely to get all on pre-flop. There's no reason for him to just completely squeeze as a bluff. A, versus a tight under-gun raiser, which is us. We're playing 17-13. B, with a player who's never folding and has no money left. So I would think he certainly is in some sort of a value range. The only question is how wide did he make that value range? Did he think, well, for $13, I'm just going to squeeze my ace-10 offsuit, and this player over here with $13 might stick it in with ace-5 because fish sometimes do it, possibly, and that would be a reason which I could see for calling. But the thing to point out is again, he's got some sort of a value range here. And the other thing, again, thinking about this player behind, there's actually a pretty big risk of him jamming all in for his 14, then him jamming all in for his 100, and then us folding.
Yeah, I'm doing
So first off, we're not, ace queen suited, generally a hand in position you want to be calling and seeing a flop with. One thing is he's got a pretty good hand here for sure. He doesn't have any 9-10 suited in his range. He might have ace jack, but he might have king queen. Again, I don't know. Certainly jacks make sense. So we're not totally crushed by his range. But I would expect it very much because of this fish in the pot to be a value hand, and I would be concerned that we don't actually get to see this flop. Let's see if my concern actually happens, or if it was just a little, he just folds. There's just a bit of paranoia there. But, it's certainly, something we've all seen a lot as far as that player just kind of jamming in, and
yeah,
we get shut out. Stab it. Okay, stab is reasonable. Yeah, I would think, he probably had right around the same hand. He probably had ace king or ace queen. So that's
that bet was actually pretty interesting because I made it really small, not because I was scared of a flush, but because it's more deceitful that way. If I bet the pot or close to a pot, he might call me there with better hands, because usually players tend to small bet their not flush draws or something like that.
Yeah, I agree, but it's a spot where all of a sudden, again, we are dealing with a better opponent, so you do want to be thinking along those lines of a bit more balancing and trying to, be betting the same if you're strong at weak hands. When he quickly checks that flop, I think he's just giving up, just the majority of the time. There's no reason to risk any more money. He's not going to check call, ace-king high out of position, and, I would still have him on that very strong range of roughly ace-king and jacks plus. Again, maybe tens, maybe, certainly ace-queen makes sense, and ace-jack, and I think all the high cards are just check folding. Again, when we are still a tight raiser, raising from under the gun, and calling a 3-bet. Like I said before, as far as calling in position, that is one of the reasons why I do encourage calling in position a bit more than normal, which is obviously a plus for calling there if ace-queen suited. Like I said, the only reason why I think maybe you could find that fold is if you're pretty concerned about this player jamming all in.
Yeah. It was probably a mistake to call there. I didn't see I didn't see the fish limp there, so yeah.
Yeah, very important to realize, who's in the pot, where's the fish. Like I said, when there is a fish in the pot, players are just not going to be bluffing, just because it's just so likely that all the money gets in. You want to have some sort of a hand to back it up.
Yeah, that's a good
But
point.
also the other thing is, ace-queen suited, it's still, like I said, even though he had, it is still close. It wasn't a clear mistake, or it is very close, because ace-queen suited is all of a sudden a strong hand. If we have two aces in that spot, clearly we're not folding, even though we think he has a value hand, because we're ahead of his range. Obviously, two aces is the nuts. So, the question is ace-queen strong enough to call anyway? Even though we know he has a strong hand, but is our hand just strong enough to for that not matter? And it's on the borderline. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
One thing I'll ask you about real quick. I noticed you're not taking notes on anyone. Is that normal for you? Is there any thought process there?
I usually when I finish the session, I usually go through hands, and I note the big ones after that. After the session for the manager. During play, sometimes I make notes, sometimes I don't. But most of the time I make them after the session and for the manager. I review the big hands and make notes then.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Just kind of seeing where you're coming from that. I mean, yeah, I don't know how often. The player pools are so big that particularly when you're talking, I mean, even 100 no limit, even really 200 no limit, until you really hit the mid stakes, player pools are really big. So specific notes, yeah, they might not help all that much. But I do something very much stands out to me. I will just kind of write it down about the player. I'll just pause for 1 second here. I will just write it down about a player, and I always encourage. I love color coding players. I really think it makes it so much easier to game select if you just kind of
based on
make all,
notes.
yeah, well, I mean, just for color, just make all the regs blue, so if you see a table full of a bunch of blue people, don't sit down. Make all the weaker players red. See a bunch of reds, grab that seat. Over here on table 1, it'll be a similar enough concept as I mentioned before. If you saw the squeeze coming, we don't have many hands on them, so I'm not quite sure I really would have anticipated it. But if you anticipate the squeeze, you definitely want to be in free better fold mode. If not, the flat call is all right.
No, I didn't anticipate it, and I folded. I
That's
think.
fine. Yeah, they're both playing 17-17. We only have 25 hands between them, under 30 hands between them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I counted that right. So yeah, we're not going to know too much about them. Obviously, at this point, it looks like our 17-17 now. But stats change a lot better.
Pretty decent player so far, based on the.
Sure. Sure, and I guess actually that brings up another point. Is yeah, table 1 kind of sucks. Oh, is that oh, we do have a fish in the big one. I'm sorry. No, it's a good table. I thought we had a table full of just a bunch of 21-21s. It's not exactly. At 50 no limit in particular, you just, you want to find a couple weak spots. So also, one thing to point out over on table 1, as far as that is a good c-bet versus before, there's a similar enough spot with a pair of 9s where I said it wasn't. All of a sudden, a pair of 4s, it does fold out a lot of better hands, and it's a lot more vulnerable hands. So c-betting a pair of 4s on a it was, again, like an ace-queen versus an ace-jack flop. That's perfectly fine, a good thing. We want folds, where c-betting a pair of 9s on that flop really just doesn't accomplish anything for us.
Okay.
So does that make, do you see what I'm getting at? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see where you're getting at. I know, I remember that 9 before on an ace-jack board.
Exactly, yeah, very similar spot, similar-ish hand, as far as a pocket pair where if we're called we have 2 outs. But, it does make a lot more sense to bet for 4s.
Yeah.
Again, we're making a few of these. I think these have been okay. Earlier on, I talked about calling a few of these suited connector type hands in position, but they were generally speaking on the button. This is another one where we folded 9-10 suited and the cutoff, becomes a bit more marginal. Okay. I didn't quite see how it was a small enough pot on table 2. Was there anything to note?
No, I just saw an opportunity because he was checking back to try to steal it, and when he called, I just gave up.
He called the turn on a 4 flush board with just an ace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might be something to take a note on. That's obviously pretty loose. We were bluffing and he was beat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd consider this 10-8 a bit too loose, even closing the action here. Well, who opened? We had an undergun open. Yeah, I don't like.
These sounded they're opened. Yeah.
I don't like this lead out. We just have to have a weak hand here. There's no strong hands in our range. So the undergun raiser can very much raise absolutely regardless. Given stack sizes, if he really wanted, he could still raise ace king. Or ace jack, or I wouldn't go so nuts as like raising a jack 10 suited here. I think he'll fold that. But if he has some sort of a high card value, because even if one of these other players gets stubborn, first off, it's a real tough spot. Even these very loose fishy players, they're not going to feel too good about a pair of 4s. Whereas against a single bet, they might just stick it in with 4s. All of a sudden, it already went bet raise. They might actually find their folds with their kind of marginal hand. So, he can possibly just raise 100% of the time here. It's not all that ridiculous. No. And the other thing, yeah, we don't have any strong hands in our range. It's an 8-2-2 rainbow flop. There's probably no 2s on our range, period. If we had ace 2 suited, we're probably going to check raise. It's reasonable enough to think that he won't see bet into, he won't c-bet into everyone in this spot, but like I said, because the bet number raise gives his hand so much more credit, a raise is actually a better play than a c-bet might be in this spot. So we really kind of open ourselves up to getting raised.
Yeah, I just folded there.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would quite level myself and know for sure that he saw it the same way I did, that he's going to raise with 100% of hands, but he certainly can. We're opening ourselves up to exploitability there, and yeah, he's also just got his beat a lot. It's much more likely had a pair bigger than a pocket pair bigger than eights, which Yeah.
Yeah, especially he was the original raiser. He was under the gun, so
Sure. Yeah, we're going to learn a lot about his hands when he does. He is, again, like I said, if it's Tech Tube, just because a $2 or $3 bet is just not going to get as many folds, which would be what a C bet would be, about 3, or maybe 3 or 4. It's not going to get as many folds as a $10 bet. When we check to him, he's going to be less likely to C bet with nothing than he would be to raise with nothing. If he, it's very reasonable to have that thought process. That's the way I'd see it.
uh, I think his bet was pretty good there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Shoot.
yeah, for sure. We're just, and it worked. Yeah, we're just folding all the time. So yeah. And again, it comes
Yeah,
down to a spot where, although that's a reasonable I don't know, if we had a very passive under the gun player who we just knew was going to check that flop and would never make a play at us, it's okay to lead out there, but I don't think I don't have the read him back. I'm not quite sure you did. He
no,
didn't,
I did.
he raised, so if you did have that read, it was likely wrong. And yeah, this is a much better spot if we actually pull the trigger on that check raise than that other hand, because here we're very credibly representing all 3 sets, and we have no
A bit
value.
small, I think. Yeah, no
Yeah,
value.
you could make it 7. Yeah, it's fine. And we have
Yeah,
our 2 overcards just in case. That's a card we just have to give up on the turn. Our bluff just becomes a lot less credible. Just because now all of a sudden he's going to say, well, he probably doesn't have force, because who makes
yeah,
quads? So on board pairing is a very bad card for us. I would just give up at this point.
yeah. I didn't, and I gave up on the river. I think.
Yeah, anything which calls this flop is calling this turn reasonably, unless, there's no reason for him to be in some sort of aggressive mode. Obviously, when we check raise this flop, we're not representing a huge range. We're representing 9s, 4s, and 5s. We probably don't have 4 or 5 suited. But, pause it right here. So we probably don't have 4 or 5 suited. We're only representing a few sets, but, given how tight we are, we're probably going to get credit for it. When he calls, he's probably got a 9 or better. Maybe he's getting stubborn with 6s or 7s or 8s. He could also have a set himself, There's no reason for him to pre-bet this flop with 5s. Obviously, we're going to take 4
Yeah,
range
obviously.
or 9s. So he can have a lot of very strong hands. Or, when we barrel that turn, we're really trying to take off. I would put his range as really a 9 or better. And we're going to need something which adds more credibility to our hands than less credibility. And a 4 takes away credibility. It takes away combos of 5s. I'm sorry, takes away combos of pocket 4s. Whereas a
Yeah,
hand like a 6 or a 7 or an 8, all of a sudden now we could have possibly hit a straight. Now we could have made 2 pair. If he did have jacks, he might actually just find the fold. It's always tough trying to take someone off jacks, but it would make a lot of sense for him to fold an 8 turn if he had pocket jacks. He's just not
yeah.
beating anything anymore.
It would be a very, yeah. Go ahead.
Exactly, and particularly similar enough with an ace or a king, even though it doesn't make a ton of sense, but we do have an ace, which is nice. It doesn't make a ton of sense for us to have an overcard. It still is just much harder to call down with, say, 9-10 if the turn's a king. It's just kind of how people play.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, over on table 2, I think this is a great spot where defending against the light free betting, I guess we are more than 400, or more, I'm sorry, more than 100 big blinds deep. Still, generally speaking, I prefer to just 4-bet and stack off with a wider range. Just check, calling with 10s out of position, it's just too difficult to play. We're going to get outplayed a lot. When we get all in, we're not a big favorite, but generally speaking, particularly hands, pocket pairs, even like 10s or jacks, they really don't play all that well post-flop. Because there's just so often overcards, and it
Yeah,
would end up check folding way too often. So even though when we 4-bet, I would consider it my value range. If we get all in, we get all in. We're going to be in okay shape, but we're not going to be crushing him. Yeah, we completely, first off, we pick up a lot of dead money, which is a good thing, and we don't risk getting outplayed by. If he had 4 or 5 suited there, he outplayed us. Whereas we just don't have that risk if we 4-bet.
yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's hard. It's difficult spot with stance out of position. Definitely, and here's another difficult spot with kings on very coordinated board.
Sure. Yeah, very, very opponent dependent. It looks like we went kind of like an induce-ish line. Kind of looking. I mean, I'm assuming we're not going to fold if he sticks it in.
I don't think I'll fold.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, It makes sense, as far as, trying. I'm not quite sure how often it'll actually work of inducing, but it makes some sense. People they do silly things, so it's certainly okay. The other option certainly being to call and wait for a safe turn card to check raise all in is very reasonable as well. Obviously the downside is we possibly give a free card if he was raising there if just an inside straight draw, maybe he hits it. The positive being he's, might just bet fold the turn, bet 12 bucks on the turn, and we get a bit more money out of him. So, again, just another line to consider.
Yeah, I guess it would be a more optimal play to just call and then check raise it.
It can, exactly. It can be, but both lines are fine. Generally speaking, I don't really like folding blind versus blind on a board like that, in a spot like that, unless I know my opponent needs a set to raise. Obviously, we have to fold, because all three sets are in his range, but I would definitely think he has plenty of semi-bluffs. By just free betting the flop, we are, a bit more likely to, when the money gets in, be a bit beat, be crushed or whatever, but I still don't want to fold. We're still just hands with equity or whatever.
Yeah.
Which we're in good shape against.
So I see you're fixing the video, eliminating my desktop in the back.
Oh, yep. I just cut it right off. Oh my God. I guess,
Yeah,
you could still see it.
I can see it. Yeah, I figured it out later on when I was experimenting with Camtasia a bit more. So yeah, I figured out that those lines actually mean capturing of the screen. So later on.
Sure, yep. It's no problem at all. Yep, just cut it to whatever length you like. Okay, we are, at, well, there's 8 minutes left in this video. Do you happen to remember, is there anything interesting that's going to happen? Or do you
I kind of made a mistake on the end of this video with King 10. I flopped a 10 and I just checked cards to the river. The river was a king, and I just he shot three barrels, and I just jammed the river. He folded then, but I think I was beat before the king fell. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting hand, but I'm pretty sure I played it wrong. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I would like to hear your opinion on it.
For sure. We'll stick around with that for that. Yeah, well, let's try to find it. let's skip forward a little bit.
I think it's the last minute or something like that.
It's like very close to the end.
Yeah.
All right, let's just do the last 2 minutes. And oh, there it is. All right. We'll just leave it off right here. Oh, looks like there's another interesting hand or two. We have a nut flush draw. Well, let's go back. Let's see how this develops.
Like I said,
Okay.
I got a little. I loosened up a bit. And
Uh-oh. Maybe I did skip some interesting stuff, but we skipped ahead a minute, so we couldn't miss too much. So we open ace-8 suited cutoff. That's perfectly fine. Flop nut flush draw. I mean, I'm gonna get it in here. Just, I'm assuming that's what you're thinking. We'll see if you don't.
no, I think I actually don't get it in. So.
Okay. We didn't say. I'm gonna ignore that Jack 10 suited hand doesn't look like too much here, and we'll.
I think I'm just calling here. I don't know why I did that actually. I'm good most of the time here.
Okay. Yeah. One reason I very much like check raising here, or I'm sorry, re-raising here. He called our open pre-flop, so as far as he's a pretty aggressive player. Kings aren't in his. I wouldn't put kings in his range at all. I guess the hand I guess I'm concerned about for sure is like a king high flush draw, but there certainly are a bunch of other combo draws he could have, or just smaller draws, which both we have great equity against, something like Jack 10 suited, Queen 10 suited, Queen Jack suited. All we have great equity against all those hands. Also, he doesn't have a ton of value hands. He can also just be check raising with Queen Jack, possibly without the diamonds, and it can put us in a real tough spot if he decides to barrel the turn. Again, we don't want to fold out here, so this is a spot where not flush draw. It just has great equity against his range. He can get it in with worse. Is the main reason here, the main thing I'm
Yeah.
pointing out. And whenever there's a spot where your opponent can get it in with worse, well then, so if this isn't a spot where before I mentioned a flipping or crushed spot. This is a spot where we're probably we're never really crushing him, but we can possibly be ahead. Is the main point. So a good reason to possibly just go ahead and play the hand fast, and we can be. I don't know the exact equity, but I have a feeling we're in a pretty good shape against a hand like Queen Jack of Diamonds.
Yeah.
And again, similar things on that table one, as we've kind of discussed the whole session. But both blinds have been squeezing a lot, so I think going back to what we said before, I much prefer free betting some of these marginal hands of a button if we're just going to get squeezed, and calling the free bet with ace 10 suited is
Horrible.
yeah, it's a little marginal right there. Yeah, again, there's a time and a place, and a bit more. If you think he's squeezing a ton, it's not the worst play in the world, but
Nah, I just botched it completely. So
well,
I
mean,
was thinking of re-raising there, but
we're gonna you gotta call. We have pair, we have him absolutely crushed there a lot. Yeah, we certainly need to call at least one bet with top pair. Yeah, so we'll kind of ignore that. Again, on table 3, we see if we 3-bet the ace-8, we would have folded out a better hand. That's not terrible. So, I guess the point being that even his bluffs with that ace-8 suited, even his bluffs have good equity. We only have ace-high. He actually had a better ace-high he was bluffing with. So, another good reason to play your draw fast is that, maybe we're playing a hand which he, quote-unquote, is turning into a bluff in his mind, but actually has us beat.
yeah.
I don't think we have much of an option than to call the river. With his king 10, does he shove?
No, I shove. He just folds then.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, that's fine. No. Yeah, a shove is fine. I mean, obviously we look super, super, super strong. And we are pretty damn strong. We have top 2 pair. Will he ever call this river bet with worse?
Yeah, that's a good question. But
Yeah.
the main thing is
You know what? Yeah, go ahead.
he was barreling me all along. I think he might have a better hand there. So I was kind of hoping when I jammed out the river that he's gonna call because I think he had something like bigger pocket than 10.
I mean, I think he was probably bluffing. Yeah, the question is, how polarized is he? When he does bet all 3 streets like that, just kind of jams it. Does he just kind of have a set or is bluffing, or does he have some in-between hands in his range? It's tough to say. Again, it's only 10 hands. At that point, all we've seen out of him is he does seem a bit of a maniac. We had 9 hands. He was probably playing just as loose aggressive at that point. Huge free bet percentage. You don't want to put too much credit in 8 or 9 hands. But all we've seen of him is raise, 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 and many free barrels. A bit more reason to think he might be somewhat of a kind of very loose aggressive maniac. So, yeah, it's certainly an option to just call that river, just because we're absolutely never bluffing there. Our line is super strong. It is pretty reasonable to think he either flopped the set and, is value betting us the whole way, or he's bluffing. I'm not quite sure how much in between he has. But given that he might just kind of be a maniac or on tilt or something, I don't mind sticking the last bit of money in there. We have top 2 pair, we have the best hand a lot. So, it's all right.
Yeah.
I definitely think you have a bigger mistake over it. We have no reason to call it free bet with ace 10 suited and then fold an ace 2-4 flop. Just doesn't make much sense there.
Yeah, I agree.
And
This Jack 9 hand is also pretty interesting.
I like it. You got a barrel. What are you gonna do? We got a nice turn card. I wouldn't fire a bird barrel. Not like I think he has all that many queens, but he's got something. Generally speaking, a looser player doesn't like to find a fold with something.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so this Jack 9 hand is the last hand of the video. It got cut off a bit. I'm just going to replay it here. We were able to actually win it. Our opponent called us twice with inside straight draw and a flush draw and just checked back to river. So, close on that note. Always nice to win a pot with Jack High. As always, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave some feedback in the forums. And again, this is Neil Gewirtz for BlueFirePoker.com.